Observatory. We're looking at a few different things here, and there's a good reason for that. I wanted to show you the setup, but I also thought it would be a good analogy to show you the experiment about the 40-degree mark. As you can see, we've got a slow rotating motor with an iridium magnet on there. Obviously has a north and south pole on the magnet, and we've got a compass needle. And what you see, this is what I've been trying to demonstrate to people, is what you see is when the needle gets to around about 40 degrees, it goes through the process of leaving the strong field lines into the weak field lines, and you see the flick from north to south. This is the basis of the theory that we've been predicting, which we could be 2.7 years away from actually seeing. Now, I did build this for another purpose, and I'm going to explain that now. So I just want you to just, obviously grasp the concept of the theory of the strong field lines and the weak field lines. Obviously, this compass I could be holding here in the United Kingdom or in the United States of America, and the process of what's taking place beneath our feet in the core of the Earth is the process of what is causing the actual magnetic poles to rotate in this current reversal that we're in. So in my view, no different. We will reach a point where we get to 40 degrees, as you can see on the compass needle, where we miraculously get that expedient movement that we're witnessing in this little experiment, and that is where the poles flip. So the 40-degree mark on the chart on Google Earth that you see me show you is the actual distance of 40 degrees across the northern hemisphere from Canada back in the 1900s, where it first started to migrate to the current time that we're at right now. We're not at the 40-degree mark yet, but we're very, very close. And if this theory is correct, then there should be no reason why the Earth's magnetic field shouldn't behave in the similar manner to what we're seeing right now, that you're seeing here in this experiment. So that's that. Basically, this is nothing to do with this setup that we've got going here. In fact, I'll leave the magnet on there so you can see that there's a high torque motor running. If we go back to what's powering the motor, you'll see we've got a DC-DC motor. Now this DC motor here is actually being powered by the power supply. And what we've got, although things are getting a little bit warm, and because of that they're heating up the glue, but the point is this, is that you can run, if I just crank up the power a little bit on that and then try and get it to the point where the LEDs light, and you can see that the motor is turning. The idea of this is a high torque motor with a gearbox on the bottom, as you can see, and the only thing that's powering it is the DC motor, which is acting as a generator, because you can see there's a cam on there, or a shaft, drive shaft, which is being driven from the 12, well, it's not really a 12 volt motor, it's running at the moment at 8 volts, 0.2 amps. It does run on a lot lower than that, but the point is you can hardly stop that motor turning with your fingers because of the gearage. It's a lot like block and tackles, if you get what I mean. I'll stop this at the moment now because I'm sure that the glue is getting to the point now where it's getting too hot. As you can see, it's just got to the point where it's come unstuck. The principle behind this is that we can use a DC motor which is powered by low voltage to drive another DC motor which acts as a generator to drive a high torque motor which is capable of turning a larger wheel. I did 3D print one of these wheels. Looks like a little bit like a shot put, but this is just the base of the larger wheel, which will probably have around about I don't know if you can see that drawing on there, 12 motors and 12 coils. So we've got the 12 motors on the bottom, so we've got a gear on the bottom which goes all the way around the wheel, and we've got 12 DC motors which is being powered by the high torque motor in the centre, and then we've got coils on the top, which I showed you the other day, which is over here, this, and we're going to have 12 of those as well. And the idea is as you can see, there's an array of magnets that run round the top ring of the gear tooth, which runs the 12 DC motors. So not only have we got the 12 DC motors running round when the high torque motor in the centre is running, we've also got the 12 magnets, which will, as I showed you the other day, hopefully produce electricity as the magnets go past that. Simple process of generator or motor. And the idea is just to see whether this works. Now, I do understand the conservation of energy before we go any further. And, you know, what we're trying to do here is just cheat things a little bit by using gearboxes. And like I say, you can't hold this motor when it's turning with your fingers. You can't stop it turning because of the torque that's being generated through the gearbox of this little motor. And these motors don't have that gearbox attached to them. But nevertheless, when one is turned, one of these motors is turned, it produces enough electricity to run the high torque gear box with that motor on. And I'm just hoping that with not only you know, the high torque motor using the advantage of the gearbox, turning 12 small DC motors, which I've ordered, which haven't come yet. We're going to 3D print all this up. You're going to be, I think you'll be impressed, guys, with what we're going to do here. If nothing else, it'll look like an impressive attempt at trying to overcome or, you know, reduce the efficiency so that we produce electricity more efficiently, should I say. A device. Let's see. But what I'm doing here is I'm not just using the power that we create through the high torque motor running 12 of these motors, but we're also using coils and magnets as well on the ring. And this is about what I was talking about the other day about the multi-fuel mix, using more than one method to create you know, the energy that we need. And the other thing I thought is it wouldn't be too hard to incorporate wind as well into this, so we could have it like weather vaning in the wind. So we're using the pressure of the wind to help the gearbox overcome some of the friction that might be generated through running 12 of these motors that are going to act as little generators in turn to feed the power back into the system. I will just say this, not only did this motor when it was turning, and I can get this motor turning at 5 volts, 0.20 amps, which is very little. But not only does it power this high torque gearbox and the motor that's encased in that block, but it also, as you saw, lights up all these LEDs. So I'm not saying that this is going to work, I'm just saying it's going to be an interesting project alongside what we're already doing, because I do believe that this could help us overcome some of the off-grid solutions that we've got. So I'm confident with what I've showed you already in this little upload about two things. First of all, and primary, you know, you can see the theory behind what I'm talking about with the 40-degree mark. You can see that we are now on the doorstep of that, probably 2.7 years away. And you know, if the theory is right, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, you know, we should be seeing some uptick in the movement of the magnetic North Pole from now till then. And it might just be a little bit over, but if it is, it's going to be around about that time, 2.7 years. We're very close now. The magnetic North Pole will have migrated 40 degrees in total at 2021, 22, or maybe 2023 at the max. The other thing is that you see is that, you know, I'm confident as well. You saw the DC motor that was being powered by a small amount of electricity that was running another motor that in turn was turning a motor with a gearbox on it. And the thing is, with the gearbox motor, I don't know if you're familiar with generators. When you start to draw a lot of current out of a generator, you'll hear the engine pick up, and that's because it's having to now put more fuel into the engine to cope with the demand of electricity that is being produced, and that's because there's a magnetic field building up in the current. So my idea is not to be greedy and steal it all out of one motor like we're doing in the experiment that I've showed you, but spread it over 12 motors so that the magnetic field is reduced in all the motors, yet the motor with the gearbox at the centre of the mechanism is doing all the hard work, and the other 12 motors are providing a little bit of electricity with it. Now, I said this when I was showing you this, I'm familiar of the conservation of energy. You can't usually put a little bit in and get more back out, but what we're doing here is slightly different, and I've not seen anybody else doing this in all the videos that I've seen, and that is using multi-fuels or multiple methods of generating electricity. What this is to do is to eventually build a device which we can upscale. We don't need to be using these little 5-volt motors anymore, but upscale it to, you know, 240-volt motors with gearboxes on and 240-volt generators, yeah, and then build this device and show you how to do it free of charge so that you can run your household and all of the components within the house, your cooker, your fridge, your showers, your boilers, and have ample amount of electricity to do that. And I'm sure we've approaching this method the way we are, we can achieve it, and we'll do it for free. We'll put it out there because, you know, there's no point patenting anything like this at this point in time where we are, because, you know, the patent office is just a pickup point for anyone with money that they can go into the patent office, backdate the patents. I've patented about probably 8 different things in my lifetime, and one in particular was, I know, backdated. We done a search, it was clean, it was good, so we patented it. We showed it to a lot of companies. There was no interest. One of these companies involved Richard Branson and Lloyd's Bank, and there was a lot of interest in the product, but they said the technology didn't exist at the time, and it wasn't long after the patent expired. Because if you've ever done patents, you know that it's like a little bit of a runaway train. You've got to keep funding the patents in order to keep them going. We let the patent expire, and as soon as it expired, Elon Musk came out with that idea just before he sold PayPal off, and there was nothing we could do about it. You know, when we inquired about, you know, taking this up with the company, they sent us to a railway yard. I remember the address was a railway yard in somewhere in the United States. So there's no point patenting any of this technology. You know, you've got to just put it out there for the people, and you know, and let them exploit it. The first thing I'd do with this method of producing energy would be just to put it out there for everyone to see it. Obviously there's going to be cost at my end and time involved, and obviously, you know, I've been to university, so there's cost in learning what I've learned. And I don't know if you've ever seen this little office that I'm working in at the moment. It is crammed packed with all sorts of equipment, and you know, you need this sort of equipment and those sort of skills in order to build these things at a reasonable level. And you know, we are producing them. You saw in that experiment me produce enough energy to run a high torque gearboxed motor, which in turn should theoretically be good enough to run 12 small similar motors to the one that is powering it, and have enough power with the coils that are spinning round, with the magnets that are spinning round on the same wheel of the gear that runs the motors, in order to power the coils, which also produce electricity. Now, if that's not enough, we can add to this system a battery, and we can also, instead of having just a blank disc in the centre, we can have a wind turbine something that catches the wind, and that will also help take some of the friction off the motor whilst it's running the cars and the motors, and add a little bit of extra energy. We can also incorporate a little bit of solar power, and if we add a battery to this where we store the power, then I think we can easily, by mixing up all these different methods, have a system that runs our homes pretty much free of charge, apart from the initial cost of actually building the unit. And I would make that free source for everybody, because I know that is the only way to do it. If you come up with anything like this, is to give it to everybody. Now, obviously that doesn't help me, it doesn't make me a rich person, but you know what, I know how much that would help so many people in this world. Can you imagine if we are producing our own electricity? And as we know now, we are moving into the era of all electric cars. So you can charge your car up, run that around, you can run your house off the system, and the only other thing you really need to go to work for from that point on, other than your exotic electric, your exotic luxury items, would be food. I'm sure we could do that as well. Look into that. There is a couple of people on YouTube that are trying to do that. They're trying to find a way where a simple, small, not the large shipping containers, but small container can provide enough food for the household. Albeit, a lot of it is based on vegetables, using, hydroponics and lights to grow food. We're talking, first of all, I suppose, when we're trying to achieve any of these things, we're trying to achieve the bare essentials, and then at a later date, add extras to it, like proteins like chicken and pork and things like that. But the point is, we do have a lot of technology which we can utilise to our advantage, and that's where we should be moving now. And the only thing we've got to ask then is, what do we need these expensive governments for? I can see in the future we are going to be reliant less on governments, because we will no longer need them. We'll know how to behave, so we won't need such a large police force unless they are forcing it upon us. We don't need governments now to act as our nannies like they are right now, telling us what they feel is best for us, like vaccines, and there's a pandemic on its way and you need to lock yourselves away and things like that. We don't need anywhere near the government rule that we've got today. And by producing systems like this, what I showed you at the beginning of the video, is obviously the first step in a way to getting off grid. And when most of us are off the grid, we don't need to rely on these agencies, like I said. But there's a problem, guys. There are few people like me, that are prepared to give it for nothing. I think that's the only way forward. But what we do need is a little bit of support. And we are here, one of the worst months of the year, where we're not getting too much of that. And we do have 30,000 subscribers, and we probably have around about, out of those 30 subscribers, we have about 200 people that put what they can afford to put in to this little kitty. And you can imagine, when we produce something like this motor that generates enough energy for the household and other, how beneficial that will be for everyone in this world. But we've got, unfortunately, a lot of shirkers that aren't prepared to do the work in order to get us there. And you haven't got many people that are prepared to invest the time in order to build these things, to see if they work, and try and push it to work at the end of the day. I was watching a video with Elon Musk, and I completely agree, because of my experience in success in these things that we've built already. Is the only way to do it is work hard. Keep trying, don't give up, stay committed to it, and it will work at the end of it. I completely agree with him with what he said there. But I can have as much enthusiasm as possible, but without the backing from a few people, you know, like we have already, which I've got to say is not enough. You know, we need a little bit more support than what we get. And, you know, I tell people at this time of the year, you know, the sport drops off, and it does fall majoritarily on deaf ears. People don't want to help, and I can't see why. You know, they're not interested in helping, you know, the progression of the species across the range, and it doesn't matter what country you come from. Well, that's the way I see it anyhow. It doesn't matter where you come from. You know, if I've got something to share with you guys which is beneficial for you, I will share it, and I have done on many occasions. You know, we have achieved a lot with this observatory in the past, and even beat some of the bigger organisations to the table with the data before they've released it. So, you know, I know what our capabilities are here, and you know, it just is a little bit sad sometimes when you think to yourself, you know, what is it with people? Why won't they work together? Why are they not committed in helping each other? And, you know, it's that same story that we hear time and time again. Strength in numbers. If everyone works together, everybody can get something back out of it eventually, and, you know, we all prosper at the same time. But, you know, we live in a strange world where a lot of people are just out for themselves, and, you know, it's no wonder why the majority of people are pushed around by the governments like they are, because if they weren't out for themselves, they'd be out for each other, and as a whole the governments would never get away with what they do today. But, you know, what we're talking about is just one aspect of things. You know, we are facing some, you know, testing times, to say the least, and I think more now needs to be done than ever. That's the way I see it. And you know, I will continue doing what I'm doing so long as I'm getting a bit of support from, you know, you guys out there. So I think we'll wrap the video up. I think a few of you will be happy to see the experiment recreated here, albeit with a little motor instead of me holding a magnet on a chopstick and spinning it round. You can see that when it gets to 40 degrees, you know, it leaves the strong field lines, goes into the weak field lines, and rapidly moves. And you've also seen a potential product which could come about, which we will give freely to everybody based on the success of that. And, you know, I say we can do it, because we're not trying to do what a lot of people are doing here. They're just using one method. We're using multiple methods, and I'm confident we can do it. You know, it doesn't have to be perpetual motion. I'm not trying to achieve perpetual motion. I'm just trying to, through the technology that I understand, put these together and come up with something that works. And I'm confident we can do it. So yeah, guys, the only other thing to say is there's a link down there. You know, worst time of the year for the observatory, needing more support than ever now to see us over these next few months. And, you know, the only other thing to say is, you know, guys, links are down there. You have a good time, and we'll be back in the next day or two with an update on the progression of the Earth at a glance, and a day after or so after that we've got the Trimag system data to look at, which gives us the latest magnetic North Pole. Till then, you know, take care. Bye for now.